I develop this PRD, I can then take this, and the PRD has basically defined a front end, a back end, and and these are basically what kinds of software this PRD has told me, like what are the pieces I'm going to need to make this happen. And so I realized that the back end is going to need to be Python. Python is a programming language that if you're going to do anything in large language models or developing apps for large language models, you have to learn Python. Python is the back end of almost every app that uses a large language model. So if you want to dig deeper into this and you want to learn one language, one programming language, start learning about something. You don't have to be an expert in this. Just start thinking about it. Learn Python. And the front end, which is how this app is going to be presented to the world, the beautiful website and everything. This, after kind of looking through and talking to the ChatGPT, I kind of found this option called Gradio. There's another option called Streamlit. And I chose these as options for the HTML or web interface because in my conversation with ChatGPT, it said, you can use these. These are just packages of Python. So you only have to learn Python. And you can just learn one language, maybe a little bit of HTML, but I'm not going to worry about that because these are just packages of Python. So I only have to learn one thing, Python. So in addition to this, I start doing some deep research. And I ask for information about what's out there. What's out there that looks like this? What kinds of apps are out there that do this kind of thing? And what did they use? What kind of features did they find useful? I actually did also some deep research that, that's ugly. I did some deep research on the effectiveness of these kinds of role-playing apps for improving students' abilities and competencies. So I actually looked for some actual studies that have been done using these deep research tools. I talk about those in another video. So worked my way down from the idea, testing it. I workshopped this idea. I developed a PRD, think about the front end, the back end, do a little more deep research. And I've really got an idea of what I want. So after I've done all this work, I now have a pretty good outline of what I want. And I start thinking more about the exact features. And this document, this PRD document, pretty much outlines all the features that I want in it. So I kind of think about I want it to be a chat. I want it to be a role play. I want to be able to add scenarios, client scenarios, and I want the LLM to act as the client. I want it to be able to give it a scenario. I want it to act just like a client would. I want to think about how could I do this with a voice-to-voice interaction. That'd be really cool if you could just talk to it and it would talk back to you. I would like a way for this app to be able to give me feedback. Just as if I, the clinician, the professor was there, just like I do with my simulated client role plays. We do the role play and then I give my student feedback. It'd be really cool if this could do a little mini version of that. So some kind of feedback. And then as I was thinking about this, I thought, wow, it'd be really cool if you could take, for example, an entire textbook on counseling and feed that in. Textbooks. It'd be cool if you could just feed this whole textbook into the feedback system. And then I kind of thought about, this is really what we call an agent-based design. In other words, it's almost like there's different modes here. One is the LLM playing a role and you're interacting. And then the second is this LLM playing the role of an expert with all of this information, hundreds of pages of information that you fed it, and then it uses that to give you feedback. So this is called agent-based design. So agents means there's different agents that the LLM is playing, and you can switch between these agents. So it'd be cool if I could do that. And it'd be cool if I could save the feedback. I just kind of, this is all part of workshopping and developing this PRD document. So I've got this idea of what I want to do. So how do I start this then? I start doing some research on, I start with just learning how do I code in Python. How do I code apps in Python? How do I create LLM apps in Python? And I start just doing a bunch of, I do another deep research. And this deep research is like, find resources. The question or the prompt is find resources that will help me learn how to code in Python, learn how to develop LLM-based chatbot apps in Python. Find me resources. And so what it finds is some cool YouTube videos. It finds me textbooks. It finds me some tutorials. And really, these days, there is so much out there on the web for just learning these things yourself. You can take a summer and just say, I'm just going to learn Python. And it's totally doable. You just got to put time in it. You got to be interested in it. You got to have a little bit of a geeky mindset where you just like say, I'm going to figure this out. So get all this stuff. I start watching some videos, start reading textbooks, going through tutorials, and I kind of come up with a way to do this, like some tools for how to actually code in Python and build an app. And I get this through this deep research. So get all this, put it together. And what I find is that there's a pretty universal understanding that yes, Python is the language to use. And there is this IDE or development environment that is called VS Code plus Python. These are the two things I'm going to use. VS Code is like the environment that you use to kind of write your code and test it. VS Code was bought by Microsoft a while ago, and so it's very well supported, and it's got lots of cool features. And I just learned that this is the way to start: VS Code plus Python. So I then also learned that you do not have to be an expert in programming to write these apps. You can basically start with VS Code and Python, and one more thing, GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot is an LLM that has been specifically designed and integrated into VS Code to help you write code. I mean, that's actually one of the things that that LLMs are incredible at, is writing code, because all they have to do to train these models is give them billions of lines of code that work and say, this is your training data, and I want you to figure out everything you can about how to code apps that work. And so you can kind of keep giving it good code, and then eventually it's like learning a language, which is actually another thing that LLMs are incredible at. Is ChatGPT, for example, speaks something like over 100 languages. Python is just another language. So you you download VS Code, download Python, you get GitHub Copilot, which is a LLM that's just for code, integrated into this, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is the actual coding and how it can be done with VS Code, Python as the programming language, and then this GitHub Copilot. And so I'm not going to go into actually how to install those things. All you got to do is look up, how do I install VS Code? How do I install GitHub Copilot? How do I install Python? And after having read some of these books and reading through these tutorials, I kind of got an idea of how to get started. One of the cool things, and I'm just going to show you this, is that that when you start coding, you're going to have this assistant over here on the right, and this is AI assisted coding, which is really cool. So in the middle here of this IDE, which is the development environment, you have the actual code that's being written. There's nothing in there so far. Over on the right, I have the Copilot, which is the LLM. So you'll notice down here on the bottom, I have this Copilot has 3 different options. It has Ask, which can ask it a question, Edit, which is going to actually write code for me, or an Agent, which is more like plan out the code for me. Now, Agent, I could just say, hey, write me an app that'll do all these things. And that's a legitimate way to start. But you got to be careful again, because you don't want to go too far. I really have found that taking it step by step, starting small, work your way up is by far the easiest way to go. So I think I'm going to use the edit option. So that means write me some code. And then also look over here on the right, it says Claude Sonnet 3.7. Well, you can choose any of these models. These are the big, large language models. So the standard models included are GPT 4.1 and 4.0. Those are great models for coding. These other ones, Claude and Gemini, these are all great too. They're free with GitHub Copilot, which is amazing. So I'm just going to choose, I don't know, 4.40. You know, it really doesn't matter. They're all very good. So down here in this chat box, I could ask it to write me some code for something, or I just want you to see up here in my actual code box, if you start typing code, and one of the things in Python I've learned is that a number sign is just a comment. So I could just start with a comment, which is not actual code, it's just a comment. This app, this will be a simple chat bot using Gradio. And lang chain, yeah, I could do lang. Did you see how it's suggesting? The AI is actually suggesting what I want to write. It can be useful, and I can just hit tab and accept it using Gradio. How about just Gradio? And so you see what it's doing now? It's actually suggesting the first thing I want. This. Every time I see something I like, I just hit tab. Okay, there it is. It basically wrote the whole thing. I didn't have to write a single bit of code for that. So this is now, this file is called testapp.py. One of the things I've learned is that when it says import Gradio as GR, that's a package. So it's an extra package I need to go to the web and download it into Python. It's like adding an extra function to Python. And what I've learned is that the command down here in the terminal, this is called the terminal on the bottom here, is pip install Gradio. So you hit pip install Gradio, it goes to the web, gets this package, which adds some functions, downloads it. You can see it downloading now there, and it's done. Now let's just see if this little app it wrote for me works. So now let's try and run it. And the way you run it is you say Python and you say the name of the app. So notice nothing happened. It's okay. There's always going to be bugs and things you have to work out. So here's what I do. Now what I do is I go over here on the right, and I'm going to say something like, this did not do anything. I want it to create a simple chatbot app that runs a chatbot app. Let's just say that. Let's see if it can fix it. And then I have it under edit, and I have it using ChatGPT. I'm going to hit play. Let's see if it can fix this. The issue lies with incorrect usage of the Gradio components. Oh, okay. So do you see what it's done? It's now going to fix my code. The chatbot app has been fixed to ensure. So all I have to do is I have to kind of accept the fix that it's done, and that's using this little button called keep. Okay, let's try it again. Python test app.py. It's thinking about it, running it. Let's see if it works. This is the very simplest possible app. It looks like it has worked. I'm looking down here and it says running on local URL. So it's actually running on my machine. So if I click right here, here's my app. This is my very first attempt at an app. And it's like you type a message, hello, and it gives an error. Okay. What's the error? Data incompatible, whatever that means. I have no idea what this stuff means. So all I got to do, and this is the way you use these, is I go back to my terminal, copy the error code, give it to ChatGPT and say, fix this. And it's telling me, and the kind of nice thing about this is that each time I run into a little error, I'm kind of learning a little bit about how this works. And it's going to tell me over here on the right where the error happened and what needs to happen. The code has been updated to format responses correctly. Okay, so it was a formatting error. And I'm going to say keep. And you see how this is an iterative process. I'm going to have to kill what was there. And I do that by hitting the little delete key and starting over Python test app. Let's try it again. And what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you the iterative process of how this works. And I'm just going to start small and just keep adding and adding features. There it is. There's my app. Text box. I'm going to try and say something. Hello. Hello. And it said, you said hello. Oh, so this little app it wrote me is just kind of a test. It's basically, if I read through this, the chat bot will take as input what I say, and then it'll output. Do you see what the bot says? Bot output, you said, and then it takes that input text I gave it. You said this. So interesting. So it's worked. I could say anything. I could say anything, and it's going to say, you said anything. So it works. It's created an app. It's the very first step in this process. And all I have to do now is I just have to keep adding features. And this is the way I'm going to add features. I'm just going to ask the LLM to do it piece by piece. So add an actual LLM API call. That might be too much for now, but I will integrate an actual LLM API call into the chatbot using OpenAI's GPT. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to have to learn a little bit about how to use what are called APIs. In fact, I could ask. I'm going to change it from edit to ask, and I'm going to say, what is an API? This is just a process of me using the LLM to learn how to do this coding. An API, application programming interface, is a set of rules and protocols, blah, 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 defined. So it's a way for me to talk to a big LLM. Interesting. So, how do I use an API with this app? These are just asking questions. So this is just a demonstration of how the coding works. I'm going to just iteratively add piece by piece. I'm going to let the LLM write most of the code. And then I'm going to ask it questions. I'm going to try and get it to solve all the errors. And then see right here, it's giving me how I need to install another little package. I'm going to need to get a key from OpenAI. They have free keys, and then they have keys that you can pay for. And a key is just the way you talk to a LLM through a program. So once I've got all this figured out, I can then kind of add in the LLM and just build it up from there. And I'm just going to show you the final code for the final product. So let's close this one and let's get a new chat. And what I'm going to do is open the file for my current Gradio app. And so, after kind of working through this, learning piece by piece, this is all the code. And to tell you the truth, I only wrote small chunks of this myself as I kind of learned it. But for example, here's the scenario. Eleanor Vance, an 82-year-old woman. Here's an introduction message. And I did these things by just saying, hey, I want to add a column that talks about the client mode, and I want to add a column that asks about the expert mode, and the LLM did it for me. So let's just run this app, and I'll just kind of show you the final version of this. So I'm going to say Python Gradio app.py. It's going to run the code, and it's going to develop, publish the app, and it is going to kind of import all these packages. And there it is. It's getting the counseling database, which I gave it an entire textbook, kind of chunking it up, and it says, okay, there's your app, and it is now located on your computer. Just click here, and here we are. This is now my app. And you are a volunteer in helping people with a series of landslides. I can just say, so now meet Eleanor. There's a picture of Eleanor. There's a video from her phone. I actually had AI create these images in that video. It looks like I have a client mode and an expert coach mode. I put directions in there. And I can just say hello. And Eleanor is going to respond. You see how I've told it only respond in the words. Don't use all that fancy stage direction and everything. How are you? And then, she's going to respond just like Eleanor. So I have a little feedback area. I can click on expert coach mode and say, give me feedback. Now it's the expert coach, and it's going to use all that information I gave it from the textbook to create some feedback. Here's the feedback. Pretty good stuff. I asked it to add a little function that'll create a PDF that I can download and read the feedback later. Right there. Gives me ideas for how to respond, how to use reflection, paraphrasing. Awesome stuff. So I started with not knowing Python at all, and I learned it, and I got the AI to write most of the code, and I just did this iteratively. And it's not like I'm an expert on this, but with these LLMs, you can essentially do this without much experience and kind of learn as you go. So that's the process of coding it. So once you've started this process with a VS Code, GitHub Copilot, and you've got Python on your machine, it's just an iterative process of looking at your PRD and just building the app piece by piece. And it's always best to start small. Start with small chunks and just kind of work your way up. That's what I found. Don't try and ask the LLM to write the whole thing at once. You won't understand what it's doing, and you'll have so many bugs, and you'll have to kind of keep working through the bugs. And what I found happens is that the LLM basically gets into what I call a doom loop of trying to solve a bug by adding another function, and it just keeps doing this back and forth, and suddenly your code is massive and it's got all these errors in it. So the best way to do this is to work iteratively. Start small, like, how do I make a chatbot? Pretty simple. Tons of people have done it. And you can just ask the GitHub Copilot inside your IDE, hey, tell me how to code a simple chatbot using Python and Gradio. It'll write the code for me. I can run it, see if it works. And then that works. Then what I do is I say, okay, I just want a chatbot. And then I've learned the Python for how to write a chatbot. 2, once I've got that working, okay, what else do I need? How about a chatbot that's not just me talking? It's a chatbot that takes on a role. So then I have to kind of think about, like, what kind of role? How am I going to present this role to the user? So I ask this of GitHub Copilot, and then it sort of gives me ideas. I try it, maybe there's some bugs, we work through it. Incidentally, I spent a little bit of time here thinking about the scenarios. Like, what kinds of scenarios do I want for this? So, for example, for public health, I'm thinking like, maybe I can think about some public health related or disaster related or emergency preparedness type scenarios. So I kind of came up with this initial scenario of a 82-year-old woman who's lost her house in a landslide, and she's in this emergency shelter, and she's worried about her cat. And so that's the scenario. But what I did is I went back to a big LLM and I asked, write me some scenario options. And it came up with several scenario options, and I just picked that one. And then I asked it, write me not only those scenarios, write me a prompt that I could give to my chatbot that will make it act out that role. So I asked an LLM to create the prompt. Once I've developed a chatbot and a chatbot that takes on a role, I started thinking about all these other features I want. So then I add, like, wow, it'd be cool if we could stop at any point and ask for feedback. So I just asked the LLM, how would I give feedback based on some information I give it? And so it gives me some ideas, it writes a little code for me, and then I kind of think, I think I'm going to need to do some more research on this. And I started having to learn about this thing called RAG, which is when the whole process that LLMs use, where you can take a huge document like an entire textbook, give it to an LLM, it chunks it up into little pieces, and then it digestible pieces for the LLM, and then an LLM can then use that to kind of understand and apply it to the context for the prompt. So in other words, I can take this textbook, have the LLM chunk it up into pieces, give it to the LLM, and then it can use this process called RAG to give feedback. So feedback was the next step. So we've got this feedback system. And then I started learning about how to add agents. Remember, we were going to have an agent that's the role play agent and an agent that's the expert agent that gives feedback. So I kind of learned about agents and how to switch between the two. And then lastly, I was just thinking about like, okay, I've got this whole thing working. I just need to figure out how to publish this out to the world, to a place where people can access it. So Gradio actually has a system that will basically publish something publicly as a server. And so we call that serving. So I'm going to serve this app out, and it's going to have a website. People can come to it. They can practice. They can give feedback. That was another idea. They can give feedback to the app and say, hey, here's what you should add. Here's some other ideas. So, so then this is where I'm at right now. But then I'm kind of thinking about, gosh, there's more steps I want to do. I want to remember some of the other ideas. I want to add voice capability here because I know that's possible. Second, in reading and thinking about this, I realized that you can actually fine-tune an LLM, fine-tune a large language model to be better at the thing you're asking it to do by feeding it more information about how to do it. So my idea is, gosh, if I could find some real life conversations between clinical social workers or public health workers and people in distress, people in need, if I could find something like interactions like that and use that to fine-tune the LLM to be more realistic, that would be really cool too. So the last step in this whole thing, after again adding voice capability, that's something else I want to think about, is to think about how to fine-tune. This is a whole new field for me. So I'm just now learning how to fine-tune, how to add voice. And fine-tuning requires that you create, that you have an LLM that is a freely available local LLM. So in this whole process, I've been using these massive large language models that are accessed through the web. They're sitting on some server farm in Texas or something. And what I want to do, for a lot of reasons, is I want to have a local LLM that is totally mine. And these big companies like Google and ChatGPT and everyone, they when they create a massive model, what they do is they make a baby model and they give that out for free for people to just mess with. So I want to get one of these local LLMs. I want to fine tune it with real data, make it better at what it's doing, make it more focused. And also I like that better because I have complete control now over this LLM. It's not, the data is not going out to who knows where, it's staying on my computer. So I'm going to run this LLM on my computer, and I can then, I can adjust it. I can use other people's models that they've fine-tuned and released. And also just, I mean, that's a small thing, but environmentally, I am just running my LLM on my computer, and I'm not making requests to this massive server farm that is chunking away at every single request. I mean, you have to realize is that there's a lot of energy and water and basically environmental waste that goes into developing and using these massive LLMs. And I don't need that for this. I need something smaller. Maybe it's just sitting on my computer that I can work with. So these are kind of like the final goal. And then lastly, I'm going to take all this, once I've tested it, gotten feedback, developed it, I'm going to then take this and test it with students. And then, just incorporate it into some of my classes, get an IRB, get some kind of, think about how I can kind of see, is this really effective in helping them develop their skills? And so that's kind of the whole process. I'm about right here, right now. I've gotten it to this point. I'm now developing voice activation, voice capabilities. I'm now developing fine-tuning local LMs. I'm starting to research that. And, then my last step is going to be an IRB, a study, and, based on the study, further development. So that's kind of the whole process. And I hope all these little steps have been helpful to kind of help you kind of understand how would I go from that first idea to developing this entire app, and maybe even turn it into a study, test it, et cetera, et cetera. And so